This is the Real Wealth Podcast, where we explore all things wealth related. Join us on this wealth journey. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Real Wealth Podcast. I'm Alex Robertson, and in this episode, we're going to be talking about 5 wealth creation strategies in 2023 for someone who's just starting on the wealth journey. So maybe you don't have a lot of money to invest, you're just learning the ins and outs of investment. These strategies are going to be particularly tailored for someone in that situation. Now, before I get into the 5 wealth creation strategies, there's a couple of caveats that I want to make, a couple of really important points. The first point is, this is not financial advice, it's just my views, areas that we already invest in or areas that we're looking to invest in and we're interested in. It's not designed to be financial advice. Always do your own due diligence. That's the standard thing out the way. The second caveat, and probably the most important caveat I want to make to you, is we are now moving on to the second C in wealth, to create wealth. If you have not mastered the first C in wealth, controlling wealth, learning how to control your money and manage it, then moving on to the second C is a very, very dangerous move, because all you're going to do is extrapolate and magnify any issues that you have in your finances. So if you haven't learned the fundamentals of how to spend less than you earn, how to budget and stick to it, delay gratification for long-term benefit, then what you're going to find is you get yourself into more and more trouble. And an example of this is, say you're an employee, your income goes up gradually every year, and if you've developed the habit of increasing your liabilities every year based on that income increase, it's fairly gradual, and it's unlikely that next year your income is going to go down significantly. That's not the case when you start in business. If you're in a business and you have a great financial year and you want to reward yourself, you buy all these new cars and liabilities, a bigger house, and then next year the economy dips and you take a significant hit, then all that's going to happen is it's going to be really hard to get rid of those liabilities in a short period of time. So you're not going to be able to meet your obligations. You're going to get into serious financial distress. So a lot of what we talk about in terms of wealth creation will magnify and extrapolate issues that are already there. You need to deal with that at the start. You never build anything on a shaky foundation. And for your wealth creation journey, the foundation is your financial understanding, your financial knowledge, the base level of understanding that you have. If you don't understand that as a business owner that you need, to put a certain amount of money away to pay the tax man, your VAT returns every quarter, that you need to pay the corporation tax 18 months later, you need to understand those fundamentals to make sure you don't get in serious issues. So building on a shaky foundation is never a good idea. And I've got a few examples of that. The first of which is something I see quite a lot when people come to start investing and they say, I've got 10 grand to invest. And then you start to look into their finances a little bit more and it becomes apparent that, okay, you've got 10 grand in a savings account, but you've also got 10 grand worth of credit card debt. And not only have you got 10 grand worth of credit card debt, it's not on 0% interest deals. You're actually paying a huge amount of interest on that because those have expired. You see people with 27, 30% APR per year on credit card debt, and they're sitting with the money to pay that off in the bank, but saying they want to invest that money. There is no point. It is incredibly difficult to invest money to get a 30% return annually. The best move for anyone in that situation is to pay off that credit card debt and start again. Now, even the money sitting in the bank is losing money because inflation is over 10%. Even if you get 4% off the bank, you're still losing 6% on that cash every year, plus the 30% you're losing on your credit card debt. It's really, really unintelligent financial move to make, and this is where people get emotional about money. They like having that savings account, they want to start investing, but you're never going to be able to get that return starting out to justify keeping this expensive credit card down. So your quickest move would be to pay that off, and maybe then you can get some 0% interest credit cards, do some balance transfers, have a new pot of cash to invest that's not costing you any money. Then you can start to generate some wealth. So that's a really quick example of just that base level of financial knowledge, restructuring things slightly, and you can start to move forward exponentially. So you need to get that fundamental base correct. And another example, and there's varying statistics on this, but the National Endowment for Financial Education said at some stage that around about 70% of people who win the lottery big go broke in a few years. And I don't know if those numbers are quite right. It seems pretty high to me, but the fundamental truth of it is, for people that don't have financial intelligence, then it's very easy for them to go broke very quickly. Most people say, if you won 20 million in the lottery, what would you spend it on? And they've got it spent before they even have it. You're going to buy the £5 million mansion, you're going to buy a 2 million villa in Spain, going to spend $1 million on cars, you're going to give away a couple of million. Before you know it, you've got a very limited pot of cash, and most people don't understand. Even if you buy these assets outright, there's a huge cost in maintaining them. You have to pay all the taxes when you buy them. You have to pay your council taxes. You got a massive big mansion, you're going to need staff to support it. Otherwise, you've bought yourself a job and maintaining a house. And most people in that position aren't going to want to do that. So you need to understand the level of cost that comes with all this stuff. Most people don't understand that. So they buy all these assets not understanding the effects of it, and they go broke pretty quickly. So financial intelligence is such an important base to start with. The other example that's given is people that get in large inheritances in their 20s, 30s and 40s often lose about half of it within the first couple of years, again because they just go on the spend and splurge. They don't understand that they can use that money to build assets that then generate income that then they can spend. It's all about creation of assets that generate income that you can then spend on increasing your liability column and enjoy life. This isn't about sacrifice forever. It's about being intelligent about how you do it. And no matter how much money you earn, you don't want to be spending everything that's coming in, or you cannot increase your wealth. So that's some fundamental things to be aware of before we get into these 5 wealth building strategies. So caveats over, let's talk about our first strategy. And the first strategy really isn't necessarily a strategy for creating wealth directly, but it's so fundamentally important, and it goes back to my last point. Strategy number 1 we're going to talk about is investing in yourself. Now, personal education, building your own knowledge, jobs can be taken away from you, assets can be taken away from you, but the knowledge that you have and the financial intelligence that you have can never be taken away, and that can be very valuable in building your wealth column in the future. So understand that generating your own knowledge, improving your own knowledge of various different subjects, and subjects that you're interested in, that you're passionate about, is going to help your ability to earn going forward. And there's so many great ways that you can build your own knowledge very, very cheaply. Podcasts have been a wonderful one for me, where you've got a massive store of free knowledge out there. It's free to access. You can access billionaires on podcasts like Diary of a CEO, Joe Rogan's podcast. You've got Disruptors. You get access to billionaires and their knowledge free. That never existed before, so it's an incredible thing in the digital age. There is no excuse for anyone not being able to get the knowledge they want now in the digital age, because there's so much free information out there. You can access cheap knowledge from subject matter experts on from books. I love learning, I love developing my knowledge, but I've never been good at reading. It makes me sleepy. I'm just not good with it, and I like to be able to multitask. So audiobooks were a massive move forward for me, because I can consume a lot of content very quickly whilst driving, or whilst I'm at the gym, whilst I'm doing other things. So audiobooks have been a game changer. They're so cheap, and you're getting access again to these people who have achieved great things in their life and have great things to share. So that's been a massive one for us going through our wealth journey. Social media content, there's so much out there, from again subject matter experts, where you can go online, you can go on Facebook, you can go on Instagram, you can go on YouTube, and there's so much. I mean, at the start of our property journey, I learned so much of what I know from YouTube. The amount of videos there with free knowledge is incredible. Beyond social media, YouTube, you've also got ChatGPT, and I want to talk a bit about artificial intelligence in a few areas here, because artificial intelligence and these sites that are AI driven are moving forward so quickly. The technology is becoming so incredibly capable that if you're not keeping up to date with what those things can do, then you're going to be left in the dust. It's like the old managers who didn't want to do email, and they had their secretaries print out emails and responding. You don't want to be one of these dinosaurs that is not moving with the times. We are in the age of artificial intelligence. It's incredible what it can do. There's loads of free websites. ChatGPT is one of them. And the reason why I mention it in terms of expanding your knowledge and understanding is ChatGPT is essentially, it's a copywriter. So you give it a prompt and it'll write something specific to what you've asked it very quickly. It's incredible how quickly. So for example, ChatGPT can write you a curriculum. If you're very specific about what you want to learn and what time frame and what areas you want to cover, it'll write you a curriculum, so then you can go away and get that knowledge and learn. So ChatGPT is an incredible tool. It's an incredible tool for many different varieties of businesses now, but that's just one area where if you're looking to learn on a particular subject, ChatGPT can help you develop a curriculum. Also, networking events. Networking events are free. You can go along to a networking event any time and network with people who are interested in the same things as you, have different conversations. One of the biggest challenges that Laurie and I had at the start of our business journey was that we just didn't have a lot of entrepreneurs around us. We didn't really know a lot of people who were in business, and through networking events we were able to make new connections, make new people, do a bit of business as well, but also gain knowledge from people. And you always want to be trying to learn from someone who's a bit further ahead from you on the journey. So there's so much opportunity out there to learn, and the way that the system's designed is that we are supposed to learn in our younger years. We go to school, we go to university, and then we get to our 20s onwards, and we're in our earning years. So the middle part of our life is spent earning, and then the end part of our life is supposed to be spent in retirement. But the fact is, earning and learning are fundamentally and intrinsically linked. If you are not expanding your knowledge, if you're not constantly learning, your ability to earn is going to be massively hampered. So we need to move away from these three sections of life where you hit earning and you're just focused on making a bit of money. You're not constantly improving your knowledge. And the third thing I'd say is retirement for me is a complete fallacy. There's so many people that are going into retirement that are lost. They have no idea what they're going to do with their time. It is one of those stages in life where you completely lose direction, and most people are woefully underfunded within the retirement. I think the average sort of pension provision for someone going into their 60s is about £60,000. That's not going to get you anywhere. You'd be lucky to get an annuity of £100 or £200 a month to live on from that sort of pot. And what are you going to do with that? There's a syndrome called broken heart syndrome, or more specifically Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, which is very common in people who retire, and it's essentially an enlargement of the heart that causes issues in pumping blood around your system. It can lead to death, and it's brought on by an increased level of stress hormone, and that can be brought on by people who have hit retirement, have no idea what they're going to do with their life, and they're woefully underfunded to get them through retirement. So this idea that your life should be aiming towards this retirement in your later ages, where you probably don't have the same level of health and fitness to really enjoy it, doesn't make sense to me. It's all about merging these things within your life where you're constantly learning. That's going to extrapolate your earning, and you're doing something you're passionate about, so you're not particularly bothered about retirement. And if you create wealth to a level that I would hope for everybody, then you have the flexibility to have mini retirements. If you want to go away for 6 months and travel the world, you have the flexibility to do that. But this idea of working your entire life to hit this retirement and then realise that retirement is going to escape you very quickly because you don't have enough money, it leads to death in a lot of situations for many people, and that it's just eternally sad. So I think for me it's understanding how you can merge those three things and constantly be learning. So the point of this first strategy really is invest in yourself, invest in your learning. The knowledge that you have will be directly proportional to the earning that you can make. Okay, so that's strategy number one. Strategy number two, we're going to go on to discuss stocks and shares. Now, I would say that stocks and shares are probably not an area that are likely to get you vastly wealthy. I mean, if you look at Warren Buffett, okay, he's one of the richest men in the world, but he's developed his wealth over a hugely long period of time. He always says that the secret to his wealth is good genes, because he's lived as long as he has, and he's benefited from massive compounding. He makes long-term plays in specific stocks and shares and sees them grow year on year for a long period of time, which has built his wealth. He also has very good financial basics, where he's stayed in the same house since like 40 years, 50 years. He's been in the same house. He's not constantly increasing his liability column. He only changes his car when his daughter tells him he needs to. Those are maybe an extreme example, but the point is his wealth has come from a long-term investing. And I'd say with stocks and shares, that's really where you're looking at. You can start with a relatively small pot of like 500 quid, and then maybe top that up 50 quid to 100 quid every month and grow your fund. And over a long period of time, that can build into a really nice pot of cash. Platforms like Hargreaves Lansdown and Vanguard are really good for starting to invest in stocks and shares. They will allow you to invest in funds or index funds like S&P 500 or the FTSE 100 that track the top companies within that country. So the FTSE 100 tracks the top 100 companies in the UK. The S&P 500 tracks the top 500 companies in the US. So they're fairly safe and solid indexes to invest in. If you look at the S&P 500, since its inception, 1957, it's went up an average of 11% year on year. It's not going to make you massively wealthy, but it's a solid growth that you get in your finances over a long period of time. So if you're adding to that, it can be a really nice little pot. And I think, the example that I gave on this on my social media recently is if you just start with a pot of, say, £1,000 and then you top that up with £100 every single month, after 10 years, based on a 10% return, which could be an average annual return on some of these indexes, you'd have £25,000. If you left that for 20 years, that would grow to £75,000, and that's without you increasing the amount that you put in every month. You're still only putting in 100 quid a month. So you can see how compounding starts to make massive differences to the amount of money that you have in those funds. So it can be a really nice way with not a lot of money to start building a long-term pot, but it's a long-term game. In the earlier years of your investment, you want to be investing more in equities, even if it's these index-based equities. The alternative is government gilts and bonds, which are really low yielding returns, but they're much safer. Equities are fundamentally more risky, but they offer much greater returns in the long term. So you want to be more highly geared towards these riskier assets as you're younger, because you need to grow your wealth much quicker in the earlier years, and that's going to benefit you in the long term. So it's not designed to make you hugely wealthy unless you're investing serious amounts of money. You can invest through stocks and shares ISA. I do that with Vanguard, and you can get up to sort of 20 grand a year that you can put in through your ISA, so you're not going to have to pay any tax on the profits that you make. So it's really tax efficient way to invest. But again, without putting significant money in, it's not going to make you hugely wealthy. Most of these strategies you would take as a sort of a diversified view of investing. So you're maybe putting 100 quid a month towards this, understanding that in the long term you have some money, but it's not going to massively affect your financial position month on month in the short term. So that's strategy number 2, stocks and shares. Strategy number 3, I think, might be a bit surprising to you. Strategy number 3 is property investment, and there's a very good reason why I include this. And the first fallacy I think most people have about property investment is that you have to be wealthy to invest in property, and it's absolutely not the case. And the best example I can give of this is the first deal, the start of our business, Real Estate Wealth Development. So we have over 200 buy-to-let properties now. We've got a building company, we've got a training business, we've just launched an estate agency and auction house. We have a development business where we're converting a farm at the moment, and we're converting old legal offices into 6 new flats. We've got a lot going on in our business. We've also got a water sports activity centre on a 7.5 acre lock site that we're going to put lodges on. Lots of cool things happening, but it all started from this one deal, this one first property deal where Laurie and I, my business partner, we really didn't have much money. We'd invested most of our money at the time, and we'd bought new houses and all that. We were kind of just starting out in our financial education journey, and up to that point we'd both been earning really good salaries and spending most of it every month, so we hadn't built a great deal of wealth. But we were looking to get started in property, and I put out an ad on Facebook, 50 quid ad, to try and find below market value properties. And the ad was something like, we buy properties fast for cash. Really simple on the local sites, and I got a response. I got a lead for a property in central Scotland, kind of near us, and I was travelling at the time, so Laurie said, okay, I'll take it on, and the deal was, if he done a good deal, we'd go 50-50 on it. So he went, he met them, he agreed a purchase price of £25,000 for this 2-bed flat. Now, even though the flat was in a bit of disrepair, the couple that were selling it had inherited the property and they were just keen to get rid of it. They didn't want to do any renovations to it. He secured it for 25 grand and it was probably worth 50 in that nick that was in. So it was a 50% below market value deal. Phenomenal deal, but we didn't have the money. We didn't have the money to buy it. But we signed the deal up anyway and we figured it out. We spoke to one of our friends who had a bit of cash lying in the bank. He had, incidentally, about 25 grand sitting in the bank and wasn't planning to buy his next house for another year. He was staying with his partner at the time. Said, I can lend you that 25 grand. We offered him 6% return on that 25 grand. And we said, we'll give you first charge security on the property, which means if we don't pay him back, he can take the property and get his money back. And because the property was worth way more than he was lending, it was a good deal. It was a good deal for everybody. Everybody was happy in that scenario. We managed to buy our first property deal with none of our own money. And that was the start of Root Group. That was literally the first deal that started us on this journey. So the point that I'm trying to make with that story is that you can start in property investment even if you don't have a lot of funds to get started. And it's not just the BRRR strategy, which that is, and for those of you that don't know what that is, it's buy, refurbish, refinance, rent. So you buy it, you do a refurb, you make it better, you refinance it, you pull all your money back out if you've got a really good deal because you get a new mortgage on it. The mortgage pays off any investment that you've made in that property and you rent it out for the long term, so you're gaining cash flow. That strategy can be very effective, and it's a strategy that you can do without having much cash as long as you're comfortable with having those discussions with people about investing and you understand how the securities work, so everybody's happy. There are other strategies though through property that you can do without much cash. So rent to rent is another popular strategy where you take on a property that is owned by a landlord. You give them a fixed guaranteed rent every month. You then furnish that property and put it out to the serviced accommodation market, so you can make significantly more per month from that property than a single let would have done. And you can make good cash on that without really having invested much more than buying some furniture, maybe a quick renovation of the property, and the front end investment on the rent whilst you're getting the property ready for the serviced accommodation market. But you can make £400, £500, £600 a month from one property through that strategy without serious investment on the front end. So rent to rent is quite a popular one. There's also property sourcing models where effectively you find below market value deals. Below market value deals are generally driven by the 4 Ds, and I'm going to add one more D to that based on the current economic situation. So the distressed seller model is how we get buy to let based on these 4 Ds. So first D is divorce. People that are separating, they usually have to get rid of their property pretty quickly. People that are in debt, financial difficulty, they need to get rid of their property quickly as well, and they're willing to sell below market value to do that. The people that are downsizing, so if they're looking to get to a smaller home, again, maybe they've already got their property and they need to get rid of theirs quickly, or maybe they've been in a chain and that's fallen through, then that could be a reason why they're willing to sell you their property quicker. And then death, inheritance is a popular one where people don't value the assets the same way they would if they'd owned it or paid for it, because they've just inherited it. They have an emotional connection to the property. They don't want to deal with renovating or clearing it out, and they just want to get rid of it. So that's been popular. And the 50 that I would add is distressed landlords, especially with the current economic environment. A lot of landlords had a hard time during COVID where, essentially they had eviction bans. They couldn't get troubled tenants out. They developed a lot of arrears. In Scotland, that was extended for another 12 months, as well as the inability to increase rents. That's led to a lot of challenges. Obviously, interest rates have gone up significantly, which means cash flow for landlords has been hit significantly. And all of this is on top of a series of legislation that came in from 2015 that was anti-landlord, insofar as Section 24, which meant you couldn't get the tax deductibility of your mortgage interest in full, which is one of the biggest costs for most landlords. You had additional dwelling supplement coming in. Anybody that's buying a second property has to pay this extra tax, which is 3% in England, 6% now in Scotland. So that's a significant hit if you're trying to buy new investment properties. There's been a lot of things for landlords. It's been a really tough time, and it leads to a lot of landlords trying to get out of the market just now. And I guess the main question would be, well, why on earth would you want to get in a property when, these landlords are hit with such difficult situations? in every problem there is an opportunity, and the opportunity here is there's a lot of properties now going below market value. Properties going cheap because you've got landlords that are desperate to get out of the market. And if you structure it in the right way, you can avoid a lot of those issues, and you can create a really strong buy-to-let portfolio over the short term. We have our share of challenges with our buy-to-let portfolio as it is now, but we are seeing a massive buying opportunity now to increase our portfolio. We work through the issues that are there right now, and we know that we're going to be stronger, bigger going forward in the long term. So it's a great time to get into property. But because all these conditions that are in the market right now, there's a lot of below market value opportunity. So there's opportunity for property sourcing where you essentially get a below market value deal, you package it up, and you sell it on to another investor who physically buys the deal and pays you a fee for the service of finding that deal. And those fees can be anything from $3,000 to $5,000 per deal, depending on the strength of the deal. So that's a really good way to start building your pot at the start if you're just getting into property and you don't have a lot of money to invest. But property investment is complicated. You do have to learn the fundamentals of how to structure your property business to make sure that you don't pay a huge amount of tax. As I said, a lot of these economic challenges and a lot of these legislative anti-landlord moves that have been made by the government over the last 5 or 6 years have made it increasingly challenging to be a landlord. And the best way to protect against that is to get yourself educated in property. Small plug for our book, Fast Track to Property Millions. We've got loads of good content in there on how to get started with property, as well as how to understand the basics in property tax so you don't make mistakes at the start. So there's loads of really cool ways that you can learn about property without paying a lot of money. We have a real property community on Facebook where we share loads of learning, loads of content, free content to everybody that's part of that group. We have free online training. If you go on our website, realpropertytraining.co.uk, we've got a bunch of free online training on there. And as a special gift for anyone that's listening, if you follow this podcast and email me proof to info@therealwealthpodcast.com, then I will give you access to our free online property training that's normally, I think, at least £100 online. There's 15 hours of content on there on how to get started in property, how to structure your business, how to invest, all the different property strategies, how to assess deals. There's loads of cool stuff on that. 15 hours of content. I'm happy to give it to you free if you just email me some proof that you are following the podcast. So there's a freebie there. Okay, so that's property. Loads of cool stuff to talk about. We're obviously going to do a few episodes going forward about property. It's our main business. We're passionate about it. I'm going to have various different experts to provide you some information on how to make the most out of a property business and how you can generate generational wealth through property investment. So stay tuned for that sort of stuff. Okay, on to strategy number 4. Now, this is a big one for the moment, is content creation. We live in the digital age. Social media is massive. There are people making huge money out there just by creating content, and it is one of the lowest cost startups that you can possibly have, because most people have an Android phone and most people have access to free apps that can help edit and produce very cheaply the online content. So if you have a passion about something, if you have knowledge, skills, something that you feel you can add value to people with, then there's no reason why you can't create a really solid income from generating digital content. And that could be anything from creating your own podcast like this. I mean, there's podcasts out there like The Diary of a CEO that have become huge, and it generates about 1.2 million a year in ad revenue. I mean, that's massive amount of wealth. Look at Joe Rogan. He recently sold his podcast to Spotify for anywhere between $100 and $200 million. There's various reports on it, but huge amount of money. He sold his rights to his podcast and became insanely wealthy through it. Now, don't get me wrong, podcast is a slow burner. It's long term. You have to build an audience. You have to engage people. You have to add value to people's life. But if you've got a genuine message to put out there, podcast can be relatively inexpensive to set up. You know, we've got a Zoom P4 pod track that costs a couple of £100. We've got a couple of £100 worth of mics here, a camera. You can even record it on your iPhone. You don't necessarily have to have video content, and you can just have audio content. That's the cheapest way to get a podcast out there. And then you have platforms like Buzzsprout where you can push out those podcasts to all the various different sites like Apple, like Spotify, etc. So there's really easy ways to systemize that. You can create a mastermind online with your digital content. So you create online courses. You have the knowledge to share. You create an online course, and you have sites like Patreon where you can create a membership site very cheaply. It's free front end to create a site on Patreon. They can manage through their systems the subscription model. So, if people are paying you monthly, they'll collect the money, put it in your bank account. I think they take something like a 12% fee on that, but there's no setup costs on the front end. So you can join Patreon, you can create your membership site very cheaply, very easily, and they'll support you with your subscription model. And I think the thing about a mastermind or creating a membership site, again, it comes back to the quality of the content and the value that you're going to add to people. But, if you have genuine quality of content, then it's pretty easy to scale it. If you think about, even if you're just charging £10 a month for access to your membership site, whatever your chosen subject is, if you can attract 5 people per week, which isn't a lot of people, to join that, over the course of a year, that's going to be 260 people on your membership site. And even if you're only charging £10, that's £2,600 per month going into your bank account from content that you've created that you can repurpose and try and expand that. And as you grow, you can extrapolate the amount of people that join your membership site. So it's something that's very scalable. It's something that with the knowledge and content that you already have, you can monetize it in a really, really quick and cheap way, and Patreon's a really good site for that. You could also do it on a Facebook page, just have a private Facebook group that you then more manually charge people to be a part of. Again, it's all about the value that you can add, and the more you learn, the more you have to share, the more that you can monetize that knowledge and understanding. So that's cool. You've also got social media. There's loads of people doing really cool things with Instagram, TikTok, generating huge amounts of money through advertising, just by building a following over a period of time. And there are so many ways to learn, particularly on YouTube, how you can learn, to drastically expand your following in a relatively short period of time, just by, again, putting out good content that people are interested in. This is the way that a huge amount of people are making big money. If you look at the big YouTube channels, you've got guys like Logan Paul and Mr. Beast who are just messing about on videos, and the guys are making Mr. Beast $54 million last year. Jake Paul, $45 million. Even Ryan's Toys Reviews, this little kid who reviews toys on Facebook, made $27 million last year through monetizing his YouTube. And you don't have to have a massive following to start monetizing YouTube. If you're getting thousands of views on a video, you can start to monetize that quite quickly through running YouTube partnership programs and putting adverts on that. There's so many different ways to make money out of digital content, and the beautiful thing about it is you can create one piece of content and repurpose it to multiple sources and build followings in multiple areas that can then generate income from multiple streams. So digital content creation is a huge one for the moment. It's exploding just now. There's a lot of opportunity to make a lot of money if you have a genuine message to share that is interesting and adding value to your niche. Okay, so that is strategy number 4. And the final strategy that I'm going to cover is to start a side hustle. Now, this could be a business of any variety. Again, I think any business that you want to start really has to come from pursuing a passion, something that you're passionate about. If you're going to do it in your spare time, if you still are full-time employed, it's going to be a big stretch to start putting a lot of time into building a business. I always use this analogy of a rocket getting off the ground. 80% of the fuel's used just to get it off the ground, and once it's going, it's going. It's the same with any business. There's a lot of effort that goes in the front end. If you're not doing it about something you're passionate about, you're unlikely to see it through to the end. So starting a side hustle, creating a business, identify where your skills and knowledge are, because those will be the basis for any business. You are always the foundation. So where are your skills, where are your knowledge, where is your passion? You then want to start researching the market, creating a business plan. Nobody wins by accident. You have to have a plan. So just to get started and not really have an idea of where you're looking to take it. If you're trying to look at an area to have a business, there's certain things that you need to consider. You need to consider whether that market is already oversaturated, if it's going to be very difficult to get in, or there's very big players in the market already. The ability to systemize in the long term. If you can't systemize your business in the long term, all you're creating is another employment. A lot of people find that when they create their first business, that they think they're going to have this level of freedom now because they have their own business, and all they create is another job for themselves because it's not systemizable. If you're doing handyman work on the side as a bit of extra income, how do you systemize that? How do you bring in someone else to do that physical labor? What you pay them a rate, and then by that point there's no money left for you. So be really frank with yourself about whether or not this business has legs, is systemizable, is scalable, is something that you can grow into a passive income over the long term where it runs itself and you just generate the income from it. Also think about whether or not you can actually disrupt, innovate, add something to this market, because if you're just going to do what everyone else is doing, you're going to get lost in the noise. So it needs to be something that you can truly add value to, that you can provide a different spin on, that you can bring your own mark to, and really add something. Because if you can't create something new, if you can't add some level of new value to the customers, why are they going to come to you? It's hard enough when you're starting out because nobody cares about your business. You have to make them care. How do you make them care? By offering something disruptive and innovative. And think about the type of stock that you're going to hold. If you're going to be trading in stock, you need to think about whether or not that this stock is going to deteriorate over time. Are you going to have a lot of wastage? Are you dealing in food type products that are going to deteriorate, that are only going to last a couple of months, and then you need to get volume and you need to be churning over stock quickly? Where are you going to store it if it's bulky items? There's a lot of people that do Amazon FBA drop shipping, so for fulfilled by Amazon, where effectively you can buy a bunch of stuff, say from China, you can ship it to Amazon will warehouse it for you, and they'll take orders and deliver it to the clients, all systemized, very hands-off. But Amazon are going to take a cut for doing all that. And over time, Amazon kind of crack on to what the best-selling products are, and they'll create their own products similar to that, or the same product that they'll sell cheaper than you and edge out the market, because ultimately you're selling on their platform. They can control that. They've done a lot of that during COVID. They lost a lot of Amazon sellers. They lost a lot of credibility through that, and they've kind of stepped back from that now. So Amazon FBA strategy might be something that's a bit more interesting now, because Amazon aren't as aggressively stealing their sellers' clients as they were during COVID. So if it's fast moving consumer goods, then Amazon FBA can be a really cool way to make money. Just source something cheaply that is selling well on Amazon. You can see the statistics for anything that's selling, and you sell it on a decent margin, sell enough volume, and you can start to make some nice money. So there are strategies like that. Or whether it's your skills, your knowledge that you're creating the business around, whether it's going to be consultancy, have a think. But the fundamental starts with you. If you're going to start any business, you need to have some fundamental understanding of how business works. I mentioned this at the start. Understand how the financial side of things work. That if you are selling more than £80,000 a year, you're going to have to VAT register. Those numbers change all the time, by the way, so you need to keep up to date with what the latest rules are. And when you VAT register, if you can't charge the customer anymore for that product, then you're just going to lose 20% off the top, because you can't increase your sales price to reflect that you're VAT registered. It just has to come off your profitability, so that can really affect that. If you're VAT registered, you have to do a VAT return every quarter, so there's additional fees. If you're VAT registered, you have to then pay the VAT man every quarter, and you need to be putting that money aside. You need to be paying your corporate tax if you're investing through a company. There's fundamental things that you need to understand if you're going to start a business. So again, that comes back to strategy number one of investing in yourself and getting the knowledge that you need to be able to move forward on your wealth creation strategy. And finally is managing your time. So a lot of businesses fail because the owners kind of, one, I think, lose interest because they're not pursuing a passion, but two, say they don't have the time because they're still full-time employed and it's a side hustle at the end of the day. So you have to, as part of your business plan on the front end, understand how you're going to manage your time to create enough time to get this business off the ground, And I always go back to understanding the fundamentals of leverage and how to leverage your time. Time is the most valuable asset. So you need to be aggressive with it when you're pursuing any of these strategies, because there's so many of us that waste a huge amount of our time on a daily basis. I can usually take anyone's phone and look at their screen time and see 3 or 4 hours a day of mindless social media scrolling. Unless you're monetizing that, unless that's part of your strategy, there's no way you should be spending that much time in a day. A huge percentage of your productive time in a day gone to mindless entertainment. You shouldn't be doing that. That's instantly time you can get back and work on your business. The amount of time that people spend watching television at night that they don't need to, the amount of time that people spend doing tasks that they don't need to do. Another example of this is if you can generate £100 to £200 per hour that you work, then it may make sense to start looking at getting a gardener to cut the grass, because if you're spending an hour there, that's an hour you're not on your business, and it's maybe only going to cost 20 quid to get your grass cut. Same with cleaning, same, with other services. You might want to look at how you can be more efficient to create that time, but it all stems from taking a really honest view of how you're spending your time. Understanding that, breaking it down, and starting to attack the areas that you can, 1, eliminate, 2, delegate, 3, outsource. There's certain things that you'll be able to outsource. But start with elimination, because it's the cheapest way to get rid of things you don't need to be doing in your life, and creating time to focus on your business, to grow in your wealth column, and to moving forward. So that's a kind of brief overview of 5 strategies for wealth creation. I think the final point for me is that diversification is quite important. You don't want to have all your eggs in one basket. As always, you'd want to look at maybe a couple of different strategies, and if you only have a small pot of money to invest, it's also important to make sure you've got that rainy day fund, so you're not investing absolutely everything you've got. Your boiler breaks next month and then all of a sudden you're $3,000 in debt because you didn't have those provisions aside. So be mindful of that when you're investing. And that's it for me. I've been Alex Robertson. This has been the Real Wealth Podcast, and I hope you join us on this wealth journey.